building relationships with research and development takes a long time. One of the key things that I've learned is to take things as slowly as possible, but be as generous as I possibly can. And these things come at opposing directions. When you are doing anything in research and development, people don't quite understand that one of the things that we sort of think about is that what if somebody steals your idea? And the truth is it's likely to happen. People steal quote unquote ideas all of the time. But what you don't realize is that there's a lot that goes in behind building something and doing something. And your take is going to be uniquely you in terms of what you do and how you see the world. And that's one of the things I've learned with myself, is that it's actually me that's the economic engine behind things. It's not necessarily the ideas that I have. And so to some degree, I'm really cagey, and I don't like to do things as much as I used to be sort of honest, because I just don't trust people anymore with building relationships and going through many of the song and dance. And that's essentially what you're going to learn if you get into research and development, is to have this caginess where you don't necessarily trust people. You're not as open as you would like to be. But on the other hand, we face this challenging problem, and that if you're not open, you create something and nobody participates in it and does anything with it, then you've essentially built an audience of one. And so you have to also be generous with what you're doing and who you are, to as best as your ability. And so it's thinking about, there's this idea that companies, I'm blanking on them, this is very well-known Silicon Valley company that architects things and builds things so that it's very open, but at the same time they sort of control what that openness looks like. They have architectural control over how that might be and what that might look like. And with the relationships that you have, whenever you go into research and development, whether it is you are going to go into academia, for example, maybe you're going to go into industry, is this sort of caginess that you have to deal with, that you have to participate in, and be generous at the same time. So what I'm suggesting and advocating for is that you take everything as seriously as you possibly can, but at the same time push back things that do not necessarily that might hamper you in some sort of way. Right? Be open and trustworthy, and be generous and helpful, and all of those particular things, but then protect yourself at the same time. Realize that not everybody may be in your best interest all of the time. They're in their own best interest. Right? Everybody is very self-centered. You have to remember that. And I have to remind myself repeatedly to be both generous, but also protect myself. So I'm naturally a very trustworthy person, in the sense that I see the good in other people. And so I have to always think about, think about this. So how do you capture this, and how do you make sure that you're going to protect yourself in the long run? Frankly, you can't. There's always that possibility that exists, or else you're going to generate that audience of one, that one person. So you can't protect yourself completely. But you can also talk to good advisors, get a good sense, a spidey sense, in terms of how people deal with things and who they actually are. Just really work on those feelings. And so I I try to tend to rely on my wife sometimes for those feelings. I try to just get a good sense. I try to often take things slowly. All the sort of basic things that you're looking for of finding good human beings. Because ultimately, all relationships, whether you're in research and development or a family or anything, is always just based on personal relationships, right? We're all human beings. That's how things actually get done. And we have to work within those particular constraints. So take your time, go slow, really, really work at things, but at the same time, be generous. Think about how you can incorporate that in your life in terms of what you're doing. Look for things that are contractual, in the sense that they're bounded into some degree, but also think about how you can be generous and cooperative and all of those wonderful things that were taught in kindergarten, right? The reason why there's a world of lawyers that exists, and they're ultimately, a good friend of mine is a lawyer, very good lawyer. Ultimately, they are a tax on society. The reason why they exist is because not everybody plays fairly, and you have to recognize that. And go into all relationships slowly, playfully, really, really think about what you're actually doing. Take a pause every once in a while. Just be thoughtful. And then be willing at any point to say, I don't know if this is working out. That's where I actually have a hard time with, is being willing to do that. But it's something I'm also working on as a person. So I encourage you to think about that as much as you possibly can. So ultimately, we have the economic engine in our heart. It has nothing to do with the ideas and all of that kind of stuff. The economic engine is right here. And I know that sounds silly, and I know most people don't believe that, but if you've done anything of substantial importance over the years, you'll begin to recognize that it's really what's going on in here, and the people that believe in you and think they want to be around you. That's the key thing. It's not about anything else. And I know it's soft. As an engineer that was trained in business schools for much of my higher education, it's hard for me to say that. But kindergarten education is just about the best education that any of us will ever get. And we got to come back to that and think about that. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.